I need proof of it. Got it. Oh, I don't hear it. Just, she's like, one of you
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please be seated.
So good morning and welcome to KI Jones, and we have some people here visiting today. So I'd like to introduce them to begin with. First person right here is Judy Honeychurch. Judy Honeychurch is a Fairfield Sassoon Unified School Board member, and all of the school board members are assigned to schools, and we see Judy quite regularly. She likes to pop in and go to the classrooms and see what's happening, and she loves to come over and go to events and things that we have on campus. So thank you for coming. And next to her is Roxanne Liu. And Roxanne Liu is the Director of Elementary Ed for the Fairfield Sassoon Unified School District, and she also likes to drop in and attend events and give us lots of encouragement and see what we need, and she's been very, very supportive of KI Jones this year. So let's give her a round of applause. Thank you. And next to Roxanne Liu is Valmir Nunn. You probably know her. Those of you who don't know her, because you're in Mr. Brown's class, she is one of our 5th grade teachers, and next to Mrs. Nunn is Mr. Brown. And I am Mrs. Fish, and I'm the brand new principal for KI Jones, and this is the end of my very first year as your principal. My first promotion as principal. This is my 29th promotion in general, because I've always been part of 6th grade or whatever class was being promoted. So it's interesting to be in this position and not be the teacher. But I did want to ask you to look at the program, and if you turn to one of the flaps, you'll see that there is a quote for Mrs. Nunn's class and Mr. Brown's class. So Mrs. Nunn's class chose a quote from Malala Yousafzai, I can never pronounce it correctly, who was a young lady from Pakistan who chose to fight for the right for children to be educated. and it actually cost her an injury, but she did fight for the right.
Someone gonna turn their phone down? Ooh.
Okay?
What do you think?
Cái ký này nó bảo.
She fought for the right for children to be educated, and she ended up being the youngest person to ever win a Nobel Peace Prize. And she won it fighting for the right for children to be educated. Not every country in the world has education for children, and not every country in the world allows girls to be educated. So in the United States, we may take it for granted, but it is because we think of it as a right and not a privilege. And in her country, it was not a right. It was a privilege. So she's fighting for it worldwide. She started out as a blogger for the BBC, and she continues to write and speak peacefully. But her quote says, "One child, one teacher, one pen, and one book can change the world." And our kids think that that is a quote that inspires them. So Mrs. Nunn's class, what you're saying is that you value education. And I want you to take that and own it as you go into middle school and make sure that you participate in your own education, that you take responsibility for your own growth as a student. Mr. Brown's class chose a quote from Thomas Henry Huxley, who was a scientist living at the time of Charles Darwin. And he was a longtime supporter of Darwin, and that was a time when Darwin was coming up with a theory that was questionable, and people were arguing against him and saying, "Oh no, we don't believe in you, and you're wrong, and you know, it can't be true." And the quote that they chose is, "Zeal without knowledge is fire without light." So basically what that's saying is, prove it. Show me, prove it. And so Thomas Huxley really liked Darwin, but he didn't agree with everything that Darwin said. So he said, prove it. Show me the evidence. And what he did was he generated more evidence and more of a depth in Darwin's theory, because Darwin had to go back and find the evidence to prove his ideas. Now, here's the weird part. You chose something that asked Darwin to prove it. That's what Common Core does. Everything in Common Core is, you can't just tell me the answer, prove it. If you have an idea and you want to persuade me with evidence. Don't just try to tell me that you're right. So persuade me with evidence. So you guys, when you walk away, you want to think, prove it. I've got to prove it. And as you get into middle school, you're going to need to think with more depth and prove it. Prove it. Okay, then the last quote is on the back of the program. And students, you don't see it, but I want to tell you a story about it. It is a quote from Maya Angelou. And I was telling Mrs. Lawton, who's been with us all year long, one day, but I really wanted to put a quote from Maya Angelou on the program, because I was really struck by her years and years ago when she read a poem at President Clinton's inauguration. She had a powerful voice, a beautiful hat, and she stood up in front of all these people, and she read this poem that was so powerful. So I wanted to find something that would work for all of you. And Mrs. Lawton said, well, very strange story. I happened to be flying to Florida to visit my family. And I had a little layover in Atlanta. And I was in one part of the airport where I was looking for the place where I was supposed to be waiting.